Hello and welcome to the short Vort on Parshas Vayigash. This week's edition is adapted from a Dvar Torah called Hidden from View from a Chaver, Rabbi Daniel Sinowitz in Eretz Yisrael in Yeshivas Toras Moshe. And of course, this week is a continuation of the feast and famine, the 7 good years and then the 7 bad years. Even the Bnei Yisrael, Yaakov's children, have to come down to collect produce to support themselves, and the whole drama occurs, and the parsha begins with a confrontation between Yehuda and Yosef. And in the meantime, the Egyptians have already, despite their planning, individually they were not able to save food on their own. There was a nace that they became dependent on Yosef's storehouses, and they sold themselves when they ran out of the money. They sold their property. And now it says after 2 years in Perek Mem Zayin Pasuk Yud Ches and Yud Tes that they were offering a deal to buy food. However, if you look closely, they're not buying food, they're buying zera, they're buying seeds to plant. However, in the middle of this famine and the land is drought, how could they produce anything? What's the point of getting seed? So Rashi learns that this means that when Yaakov came down, miraculously the famine stopped after 2 years. And therefore, they were able to start planting seeds on their own. But this leads the Ramban Nachmanides to ask the question: if the famine stopped after 2 years, then the prediction of 7 drought years, famine years, was incorrect. Maybe they won't believe. They'll put into question Yosef. So there's a couple of different answers given. One answered by Ramban himself, and we'll just use some of his answers, is that the Brisa is talking about a famine that lasted for only 2 years. Well, the 2 years is not that the famine ended then, but that was 2 years after they ran out of their money. They went and offered to buy the seeds. But in fact, the famine did last for 7 years. Another answer is that this famine did last for 7 years outside of Eretz Mitzrayim, in Canaan and elsewhere, but in Mitzrayim, because Yaakov came down, then the drought stopped there. Now there may be another answer in the Ramban that he alludes to, according to Rabbi Sinowitz, and that is that we're referring to something on a different level when we say the drought ended after 2 years. So he says that there's a midrash that says that talks about the ashes of Yitzchak. And there's another midrash that talks about a final gezerah that was signed in blood, which means it cannot be withdrawn, to annihilate the Jewish people because of their sins at the time of Mordechai and Esther. But there's a problem. Yitzchak was never slaughtered and burned on the Akedah, and the Bnei Yisrael were not destroyed by Haman. So how can the Rabbanim talk about this as if it happens? So he answered that unless somewhere up there in an alternate reality, that's where Yitzchak in fact was sacrificed, and the Gzeirah to destroy the Bnei Yisrael actually occurred, and that became something final. However, this was on a higher plane, but it doesn't necessarily get carried out into our world. Every year on Rosh Hashanah, there's the books of life and death are open, and so it says the righteous are sealed into life, and the Rishayim, the evil ones, are sealed to the book of death, but yet we see righteous people die during the year, and that there's Rishayim who live out through the years and seem pretty happy. So the answer is because it's talking about upstairs, Olam Haba, somewhere not in our plane of reality, but on a different plane, they are in fact considered to be dead. So similarly, this world, at the Akedah, there was no sacrifice of Yitzchak, but in a different reality, a different plane, then he was sacrificed, and also the Bnei Yisrael were destroyed and punished. But that's in a different universe, not in our reality, the one that we can perceive. So, but in reality, the fact that those Gezeros weren't Mekayim, that's a Tchias HaMesim for the Bnei Yisrael. And that was in the Merida of Avram and Yitzchak, and then Mordechai and Esther, that in our reality, we were saved. And so on this level, perhaps there was a famine on that alternate reality for 7 years. It's only because Yaakov came in Yaakov's merit that the famine in this world ended at the end of 2 years. Of course, there are different explanations that say that it resumed later on, either later on in period in Egyptian history, that there's a 5-year famine mentioned in Tanakh, or as soon when Yaakov died, it continued from where it left off the remaining 5 years. And, you know, it says Yaakov Avinu next week in Vayigash, that's talking about the life and the passage of Yaakov from this world, but we have a concept that Yaakov Avinu lo meis, Yaakov didn't die. So again, we're talking about perhaps two different planes. In the one plane he didn't pass away, but in our plane he did pass away. So we have to remember that there's different perspectives in the world. There's a lot that we don't see, a lot that's hidden from view. So thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful Parsha.